Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another Just Yappin' video where, aside from my normal podcast and commentary, I just talk about whatever's on my mind. Today I want to do a little story time because I get a lot of questions, especially or DMs or messages or like voicemails or questions from people, especially younger gay guys asking me like, maybe they're Republicans, maybe they're just independents, maybe they're just moderates, but they're not woke, they're not liberal, and they ask me like, how do you ever find someone to be with? Like, gay dating is so hard, especially if you're in one of these big cities. When I was in DC, it was absolutely bleak. And then I kind of stumbled into meeting my now partner, but they'll often ask me for like dating or relationship advice, given how divisive politics can be in the gay community. And I thought maybe I would answer that question by telling you what not to do, which is what I did in my first gay relationship, really. I really only have had two. So I've been with my partner now for more than 6 years. So that's been for a long time. Actually, I guess I should say I had three because I dated two people sort of before that. But the first one was when I was still in college. So I was in my third year of college, so a junior in college. And I was pretty politically involved at that point, and pretty open about the fact that I was not liberal, not progressive, not woke, was outspoken on campus and all that. However, I was not so open about that with my dating profiles and in terms of like reaching out to people. And I understand why I did that because frankly, I was very lonely. It was very hard being not just gay. So that narrows down your dating pool to like the same 200 people at my college and in the general vicinity. You would think this was UMass out in Western Massachusetts and there were other colleges around. You would really think there would have been more gay people and maybe there just weren't that many on the apps or on the market or what have you, but really it was just the same couple hundred people that you would see over and over again. And so I was very lonely. That was one of the harder parts. I had a lot of friends, but I really only dated this one person and just for a few months. It didn't even last a full semester the whole time I was there. And I really, that was hard for me, but I was not upfront, shall we say, with my beliefs on my dating apps. And then even once I was meeting people and going on first dates or chatting. And the result of that was that you would often get a first date and you would get to meet a person and you would hit it off, but then it would become a problem. And it did with the first relationship. So he had just entered UMass. So he was a freshman and I was a junior. And it was okay. Like the relationship was good at first. We had fun together, but he was also not out. So that's another thing I would not recommend. Personally, is dating somebody who is still closeted, though it makes sense. I mean, he was only like 18 or whatever. So it makes sense that he wasn't. However, it just meant that we weren't really, it wasn't like a real relationship really, but we were seeing each other very regularly and talking a lot and, exclusive and having some sort of a connection. But yeah, I basically just like lied to him, or I think if it's that big an omission, it's basically a lie. I don't know. But I was actively writing and speaking out and working in right-wing politics, yet I never told him that. And I didn't really, and I just like, oh, yeah, I have some different opinions or whatever. I very much downplayed it. And then by the time we were seeing each other for like 6 to 8 weeks, he had a couple friends who he met at college at UMass who did not like me. And it was very clear they didn't like me. And they may have informed him or put him on to something because he found out and he was very upset. And I actually, in hindsight, feel bad because I remember talking to him about it and he was like, you really did not tell me about this. Like, and that wasn't very fair to do. That was very, very, I think, dishonest of me. I can look back and understand why I did it. But at the same time, I was dishonest with him about a pretty important part of my life and identity and who I was and how I saw the world. And then after he had, I think, developed an actual connection with me, he found that out. And that feels like, I'm sure that felt like a kind of shock and a betrayal, especially because I don't know if he was super political before college, but he had been kind of sucked up into the same, I don't know, garden variety woke progressivism that all the other students do when they learn about pronoun circles and all the other stuff. And who knows, I haven't talked to him since junior year of college, but maybe he's still like that. Maybe he isn't. I really don't know. And I don't care. It's his life. But at that time, he was very much sucked in. So he was horrified by the idea that I might be like right wing, although I didn't support Trump. So that kind of helped in his eyes, but still not great. And I think at that point, like I knew it was not going to work out and we were kind of on borrowed time. So we ended up seeing each other for another couple of months. And I don't even remember that much about it. I remember being very upset and like distraught when he ended things. So yes, I got dumped in the relationship, which is looking back kind of funny, but I remember being very upset, very sad about it. But in hindsight, like I should not have been surprised. And it was always so doomed because I really don't think you can start a relationship from a place of like deceit, of lies, and then have it go somewhere good or build a good foundation. I don't think that's a thing. And I'm not going to say that you can't date across a political spectrum, like be a liberal person and a more right-wing person and be in a happy and healthy relationship. It certainly still does happen. It's still possible. One thing I will say, though, is that if you are professionally political, so if you're a journalist or a politico or a staffer or in any of these professions where that is essentially your life's work and a big focus of who you are, then I'm not going to say never could you be in a good long-term relationship with somebody who has different political views, but it's going to be tough because then your life's work, the thing you're proud of, you're excited about, is going to be something they fundamentally like don't necessarily think is good for the world. I think that's a weird place to be in, and I can't imagine that. My partner now and we don't agree on literally every single little thing, but we have similar values and dispositions and worldviews, and that means when I accomplish something big, he's like excited about it and happy about it. And not just for me, but also for the actual substance of the thing that I'm doing. Whereas if you're in that relationship where you are at odds on those values, they could be happy for you, but they're also going to be uncomfortable with it and to some extent, and maybe not think it's the best thing for the world that you just got your article published in a massive national newspaper advocating for something or what have you. And so I think it's more likely that people can have a relationship across political boundaries if they're just normal people. They're just civilians, you might say, like they don't work in politics. They're not going to run for office. They're not journalists. They're just a teacher and an accountant or what have you. Then I'd like to think that it's just doesn't have to be that big a part of your relationship or who you are, and you can agree to disagree on stuff. But when you're actually professional politico, like I was, and like I knew I was going to be, the idea that you would just have a loving and stable long-term partnership with somebody who's fundamentally at odds with that seems impossible to me. I mean, I guess never say never. There are actually a few famous couples where it's kind of like that, but especially in this current age, and then especially in the gay world where politics is so toxic, frankly, yeah, I don't think it's very realistic. So I do think you're setting up yourself and your relationship for failure. And then also, if it's going to happen, you'd have to be very upfront about it. And I had when I did try that, which I had tried that a little bit before this relationship with the person I dated in college for a few months, and it didn't go well because most people would just not match with you. And the ones that did, it's like it would almost turn into a debate at your first date. And I'm like, I remember that. I went on the first date with some guy. I can't even really remember much about it, but I remember he went to Harvard and he was a liberal. And it's like, I don't really want to date. I don't want to debate you at this first date, but he was like trying to. And I'm like, this isn't fun. Like, why are we doing this? And I didn't end up wanting to go back out with him because it just like wasn't a good connection. But the flip side of that is that at least then the cards were on the table, and people for whom that would be a deal breaker would know about it and would kind of self-sort out. Now, the flip side is that there's a non-zero percentage of people for whom on paper it might be a deal breaker, but then if they got to know you, it wouldn't be. But I don't think that justifies the dishonesty or the deceit by omission, especially if you're a professional. If this is what you do for a living and in the world, like I am and I was already while still in college. If you're maybe just a normie, if you're just a civilian, then maybe that could work. But even then, I'm a little skeptical about it. So I look back on that relationship, and it was really, I guess, good experience, maybe, but not great on my end. I definitely dropped the ball on it. And in hindsight, the way it ended was not surprising and was exactly how it was always going to end, because I kind of entered into it on dishonest footing. And I look back with some compassion for myself as to emotionally why I did that. And I really have no ill will towards this guy. But yeah, that was a mistake. And while I understand the temptations of approaching it like that, because otherwise you can feel very lonely, I would really encourage people who are dating to be more upfront about it, especially if you're in this world professionally, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But regardless, I also think that maybe the time has changed, especially in the gay community. Like, this was back in, I don't know, 2018. Wow, that's almost a decade ago. Damn, I feel old. But yeah, the gay community today has a lot more ideological diversity than it did then. There are a lot more people who maybe voted Republican, or at least just are fed up with some of the gender extremism and nonsense, and it's become more normalized to have a different opinion. So it might not be as bad. It might not be as close-minded as it was back then. And also the places that I was, I think, lent themselves to that. I'm sure other parts of the country, maybe the gay community was a little more open-minded, but my two sample sizes at that time were Massachusetts and then DC during my internships. So it was not. And maybe that's changed somewhat. I honestly wouldn't know and don't want to know. The things I hear both from straight friends my age or a little younger, from my sister, from younger gay guys that I talk to about dating, from Clarkson and his dating drama. It's one of those things that makes you so glad you never have to deal with any of that again and you found your person, because it just sounds so exhausting and so tiring. And frankly, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of people who could put up with me and deal with me. And I'm sure there's some upsides, I'm sure, but I'm also unique. I very unique in a lot of ways. And I just got lucky to find somebody who actually likes that and likes the work that I do and the value that I add to the world. And I think that's, in hindsight, was always going to be a deal breaker. So that is the story time. That is the tea on how my first gay relationship imploded spectacularly. It lasted a little less than a semester, so maybe like August until, I don't know, maybe November, maybe December. I don't even remember the details of it that much, but I was going through a lot at that time. He was not even out of the closet, and I started the whole relationship on this like dishonest premise. So in hindsight, I guess you live and you learn and you grow up, and I was just a kid then too, basically. So not great, but that's the story time and that's the tea. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, consider becoming a channel member to support my work. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.